Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Erasmus Expeditions. We are here tonight with Session 3, a finale of an Erasmus Expeditions Presents, a campaign called A Willow Weeps, run by my dear friend Baron over on the other side of the screen. In just a minute, I'm going to hand things over to him so that we can get started. Give the same warning that I give on the beginning of most of my games and videos that appear here, and that is, if foul language and mature subject matter are problems for you, then it's probably best that you find something else to watch. But if not, then stick around, because I'm sure that this is going to be a doozy of a session. So I'm going to pass things over to Baron and let him take it from here.
Hello, everyone. You may recognize me from other series on this channel, or you may not. Either way. I've had the absolute pleasure of working with Jeremy on this project that I've had in my head for some time now. And I have been super pleased with the things that I have been able to do with this game series with his help. As well as the help of my spectacular friends here as well, who I'm actually going to just toss over to let them introduce themselves and anything they would like to plug. I'll start with Jason, go around from there.
Sounds good. Hello, everyone. I am Jason Osorio, and I will be reprising my role as Svedna Nazif, the Tiefling Warlock, who not too long ago learned some very disturbing news about her father and his involvement with this group of ne'er-do-wells and healing potion thefts. And it's all coming to a head with an old enemy, I suppose, that also has some sort of strange crystalline entity like the one that she has. So very excited to see how this all ends, what sort of chaos ensues. Thank you to Jeremy for hosting as always, and for Baron having me on board with this whole thing. And I'm very excited to see what happens with me and my fellow players. And I will pass this on to Karen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karen, also known as Smith and Gears, and tonight I get to play Shanavan Llewellyn. He is just a really angry elf ranger, and I cannot wait to get back to this game. I've missed it a lot, so I don't have a lot more to say, but I'll pass it on to Phil.
Hello, I'm Philip. Honored to be amongst Baron's friends, and my friends. Playing Guthrum Gladhammer. Excited to hop back in.
And
So
oh
yeah, absolutely.
I'm playing Alistair McKenzie, kind of battle-torn cleric of the grave who has seen some shit. Yeah, I'm super excited as always. Whenever you hit me up with this idea, Baron, I was stoked to try to help you bring it to life, and I'm really glad that you chose here to host this, and then also asked me to play in this game. So I'm excited to see how this all ends. So without further ado, please.
This song, if you will, the series that we have kind of stitched together, started long before anything we've seen now. As in the past, the group, Alistair, Guthrum, Snobbin, as well as Svedna's father, Selik, were a part of a larger group kind of involved in some illegal activity during war times. Things began to get a little out of control as more people became involved with this project, notably Halser Blackthorn, a person of interest and familiarity to most of you who had been in the Fernwood area, as he was the heir to the Blackthorn Brothers Logging Company. As the kind of severity, intensity of this project ramped up, there was some kind of breaking apart of the main group at large, and a few players in this game went their separate ways. And ultimately, what put an end to it all was the deployment of those with the garrison getting sent to the front lines to do battle with King Martin on the deciding strike, actually, of what would end the war between King Alfand and King Martin. But not without cost, as there were some that didn't come back. In present day, Svedna arrived in Fernwood just as kind of some events were coming to a head. The local noble was kind of provoking Guthrum and Alistair to put pressure on Aranthea to allow the Blackthorn Logging Company into more sacred groves than they had previously been permitted, to which you knew naturally you would be met with some resistance. Sean, you had been in town to do kind of the opposite and pressure Aranthea to push back against these individuals threatening the holy sites of the past occupants of this area. As the group kind of culminated in the woods through heated discussion, there was a moment where, in opposition to the woods, made themselves present. There was somebody cutting down trees making some sort of ruckus in what would have been a sacred grove. Investigating further, you found a group of lumbermen cutting down trees, and upon approaching them, attempting to kind of use the name of Halaser to stop them, you were kind of rudely stopped when Halaser himself made himself known. As the conversation got heated, an additional party of Guthrum's cousin, as well as Alistair's kind of rival and or mentor, Gideon, who seemed heavily corrupted by some sort of evil influence. Without any kind of willingness to listen to reason, they attacked Guthrum's cousin, transforming into some sort of bear-like creature, and Gideon revealing himself to be almost made of like a scarecrow or wicker-like material, as I believe his arm was severed and kind of left, and you really seen it was kind of like a paper mache almost. The conflict kind of came to a final conclusion as Gideon, revealing that he had pledged himself to a dark master, essentially tore apart the ground at which you stood, kind of collapsing everyone into a crevasse of darkness. Which brings us to episode 3. Sorry for that long-winded recap, but that was everything. We now see the old herald. He stands beside the doorway in the tavern. It is dark now. Various sources of light exist within the town of Fernwood, but the forest that surrounds it is very dark and foreboding. The room behind him, it's dimmed. There are many people that once occupied this chamber have either departed or lay unconscious as their intoxication has taken them. Far away, we hear a faint scream, inaudible, almost inaudible to the ear. He backsteps into the common room and approaches the counter. We see Remy, the barkeep, wiping down the counter, and he looks up and nods. The herald says quietly, so only that Remy can hear. So, war again? Was Egilbert so blind to his father's shortcomings? To have a fruit bearing an orchard of peace before him, and nothing but a desire to watch it burn. I don't think that's all, Remy says. I've had a cold sweat on the back of my neck for days now. Something evil is at work. I'm not sure what it is, but I can feel it. Deep, coming from the woods. A man bursts through a door. He is panting and out of breath. Quickly, Mr. Harold, sir. I'm glad I found you. Please come quick. She's breathing, but she's very badly beaten, sir. Please. It's Clara. She's over by the lumber mill. The two men rush from the tavern, and as they run out the door, we fall into the ground. Deep beneath the soil of the Rotwood, beneath the bedrock, it would seem, until we reach stone, smooth and unblemished. We find ourselves in what seems to be some sort of endless hallway. You know that you are unfathomably deep underground, and on either side of this pathway is an open space that descends even deeper deeper below than where you are now. You are running because you know you are being pursued by a wave of these bramble creatures. As you run, this kind of hallway expanding before you into the darkness. You've been running probably for the better part of maybe a couple minutes. Like you landed painfully, jarred, and picked yourself up at the sound of Gideon's minions kind of cascading towards you.
Does the hallway around us seem to have any kind of architecture to it? Anything that's recognizable?
So, would you have cast any sort of light?
Oh, that's a good question. If it's dark down here, do I have? I do. I have light.
Perhaps you could help help me identify these carving or identify any type of stonework, Alistair, also. Just since you know I'll have a keen eye for those sort of details.
So I think that there's a point where we see Alistair, who's kind of run forward with this axe that they just found, that they just picked up. This battle axe called Hugh. I imagine almost like the handle being made out of like twisted vines, kind of forming the haft of this axe, almost like reaching over and holding the axe head in place instead of actually, like, you know, having a place where it goes through the metal. The blade of the axe almost looks like a leaf. It's glowing very faintly with kind of this white light. It's not the yellow of like candle flame. It's white. And he kind of holds it up to some of the details on the wall as we're just kind of like running past. He kind of runs forward, stops, and kind of looks at it. Guthrum, what do you know about this? And then turns and runs with the rest.
After like whacking one of these creatures with his warhammer, he'll be like, "Is this really the time, Alistair?" And then he'll go and look at it. Unmuted bear.
Alistair, roll a d6.
Ooh, a d6.
Yeah, you can as well, Guthrum.
That's a 1 for me.
Oh, I'm sorry, you said Alistair.
I mean, you can roll one as well.
I
You got a 1, Alistair?
Correct.
3 for Guthrum.
With a descriptive flourish, how do you slay that many of these minions?
So I think instead of actually running forward and putting the axe kind of up against this architectural thing, it's actually he moved over to strike one of these creatures down with this axe. And you said they're plant creatures?
Yep.
This axe does something special with plant creatures and objects made of wood. You could say +1, and it deals maximum damage. So I think that there's a... He steps sideways and slams this glowing axe down into this thing, and it almost like wilts around the wound that's caused, and it just shrivels up and like falls to the ground and tumbles like a weed. But it's from the glow of his axe, as he's kind of like retrieving it from the wall, that he notices this weird architectural stylization, whatever it is, and that's what it causes him to call Guthrum's attention to it.
And Guthrum will be swinging his warhammer in the little slightly more confined area, and just like really kind of trying to crush these creatures as best as he can, and using his hammer to crush one, and then just like launching himself backwards as one is like on his back against the cave wall, and just yeah, they're crawling all over, and he's crushing them nonchalantly, like, oh, is this really the time, Alistair? Go check it out.
Roll, and whatever your dwarven stone cunning would give you advantage on.
Cool. Yeah. So stone cunning is history, I believe. Make a history check, and I'm considered proficient in the history skill, and add double my proficiency bonus to the check. So there we go. D20. That is a 19. Muted.
I know.
Sorry.
You are definitely under pressure, kind of trying to do this as quickly as possible. You run your fingers over it. You kind of like try to take in the larger design. You notice that these stones are very large, and like as you're kind of looking at it, they're placed so closely together. You're kind of taken aback, as being this deep underground, they would have to be very old. You look at some of the stylizations, and it's elven. It's kind of it doesn't have the complete kind of like Art Nouveau style. I think it's Art Nouveau, where it's kind of more round. It doesn't have that like fully incorporated to an artistic level. This seems to be like an early style, as it's a little more barren of details, but the kind of like foundation stones are there. You have an understanding that in a lot of the kind of castles that have been erected in the region, they're usually on sites like this, pre-existing structures that are no longer there, but strong foundations remain. So to see one of these deep in the woods is kind of like, oh, what is this out here for?
This is definitely on purpose. It looks like some precision work here. It's pretty uninspiring, so likely elvish, but very ancient.
But can you tell anything, like where there might be a crossway or a larger room ahead or a staircase?
These structures are usually used as foundations.
All right. And he just kind of
I don't know what it's doing here in the forest.
Frustratedly kind of runs on.
Svedna, first of all, roll a d6.
I shall. Let's see. Ooh, okay. Rolls are mediocre already, but that's all right. We're going to come in strong later. That's 2.
With a descriptive flourish, how do you slay 2 of these bramble creatures?
Yeah, I think Svedna, given sort of her general headspace at the moment, when the group fell, I think almost on instinct, she kind of flared these large bat-like wings that sprout from her back. So she's actually flying. I think she's keeping to the rear of the group. So when Guthrum kind of takes this time to study these carvings, I think she kind of shoots him this look like, what the fuck are you doing? There's a tide of mind controlling, body possessing plant monsters right there. So I think what she does is she lands as he's discussing these foundation stones and throwing out some casual, elvish stonemasons suck commentary. She takes the time to sort of grow these two like red crystalline protrusions from her palms, and she kind of slams them together twice. And at the impact point, there are these sort of two blasts of crimson energy, and they snipe two of these plant creatures that were just about to latch onto Guthrum's bearded head, and they just go flying and squealing back into the mass. And then she looks at the others and says, keep running! And then she's going to spread her wings and resume flying as she does so, kind of keeping up the rear as best she can.
Thanks, kid.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Classic.
This is gonna be a thing, I guess, today.
It wouldn't be an online game without somebody talking that they're muted.
It's like I'm starting to talk, and it's like before, I'm like sitting here like,
I need to go into my soliloquy, and nobody can hear it.
Sean, you have Aranthea with you. She took the fall a little rougher than some of you, kind of landing funny on one leg. She is mobile, but for how long is the question? Roll a d6.
Five.
So with a descriptive flourish.
So they've been running, or at least like he's been helping Aranthea run down this tunnel, this hallway, this corridor that we're in. And then at one point he just kind of like stops because the creatures are catching up. He stops and he lets go of her for a second, and it's this dance with these two blades that he's got in his hands, and they just slice and slice, and before we know it, like three are down, chopped. And then it's almost as the last hit going through, it's like this fluid dance. As he spins around, he grabs Aranthea, picks her up, turns her around, and hits two that were about to attack her on her other side and kills them, before he then turns back to her and this time picks her up and runs with her.
You are aware of kind of something not unfamiliar to elves, who kind of similar to deja vu, you recognize spaces from your genetic history, and kind of inherently you call out, ahead, 2 doors. And as you kind of call out, we find ourselves in a past scene of sepia tone, except here we find massive glass arches kind of wrapped in brass and gold. We find, emerald kind of staircases interlaid with, quicksilver, and it's kind of a just extravagant and almost alien environment, where we see Sean in a court where many kind of like powerful looking Fey-like individuals sit. They're every bit kind of as vibrant as a season. There is the autumnal court, the Somerset court. There is the spring court, as well as the winter court. There are courts of the sun. There are courts of the moon and stars. We see courts of snow. We see courts of rain, and everyone has a representation. And Sean, you sit at the center of it all for it has come to light that an inherited trait passed down by your lineage has made itself apparent on your special day of all days. I have the name of it right here. Your Didchid, perhaps?
Sorry, I'm scrolling and trying to find it real quick. The hid is
Okay,
it
you can
doesn't
say it from now on.
yes, his
Elson.
their tongue the hit the day of joining, if you will.
I believe you probably still yourself are in some state of shock.
Yeah, so this would be like the next day, right? Like the next morning.
Presumably with it. It's in the lands of the long grass, time is kind of a mercurial substance. So it's not necessarily counted in days, but in the short time afterward.
The short time after. I'm not yet sure if Shanovan would have even cleaned up after what's happened. So we see him in very kind of like very loose, comfortable fitting clothing, things that you'd maybe potentially sleep in. He hasn't even gotten dressed for the day, if you will. But the most, I guess, apparent fact is that his clothing are soaked, covered in blood. It is everywhere. His hair is sticky with it. His hands are covered. He looks haggard, haunted, and is just sitting there on a stool, almost like bent over, hands between his legs, just sitting there, slightly rocking back and forth.
A powerful looking elven male sitting kind of high up on the dais. He sits among the court of the Somerset. His voice kind of booms. And you remember nothing.
The loud voice, it kind of almost startles Shanovan as he kind of like looks up, and his eyes again are like they're unfocused as they're looking at the man who has just spoke. They're unfocused. We see tear tracks through the redness on his face. And he just kind of looks at the man lost. Like the words don't make sense to him. Nothing.
He kind of like steeples his hands, kind of like leans over and whispers something to an attendant. It would seem that only the malice has returned to show its face once more in the Llewellyn family line.
The malice?
The affliction that has haunted your family.
And it's at maybe that moment when he's just like realizing what this means, the weight of it, and his eyes widen and they're now afraid, and he looks to his parents.
They kind of like I think actually your father probably looks down and is unable to meet your gaze. But your mother kind of looks at you, eyes equally swollen from tears shed. But they almost look as if they know what will happen and they have nothing they can do to stop it.
Yeah, seeing no comfort there. He looks back at the man who's been speaking. No, why? You're lying.
I have no reason to lie. One of the Sean, what kind of you wouldn't necessarily be like super Feywildy, but what kind of courts would your family have associated with? It can be as abstract as you like.
I think we were actually court of the woods.
So like the hunt and the beasts and stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, makes a lot of sense. There is kind of like a Serenos figure, kind of a transitionary hunter of migratory animals. He stands. So that's it? Another of our princes to be taken from us? I feel as if the gods are laughing. What have we done to fall so far? And the elf in the Sun Court kind of raises his hand. The court has decided. Solomon, you are to cut your braid and return to the Winterlands. Until you remove the malice from yourself with the relic that your ancestors used before you, you will be unwelcome here, for you are a threat to the ones you love and the ones you've sworn to protect. And as he ends, your mother just bursts into tears, your father doing what he can to console her. That huntsman, court member, kind of slamming his fist on the table.
Imagine at that point too, it's almost like there's a couple guards that come to take him at this moment, and he just turns as they're picking him up off the stool, because he's really got no energy left in him. There's just nothing left. As they're lifting him up and taking him away, he looks back at his parents, and the only things he can say, as the shock, the horror passing through his eyes, is, "I'm sorry, Mom, Dad, I'm so sorry," as they take him away.
The door opens, and that is where we see our party having opened either the left or right door. Well, you have to tell me which.
Left door.
All right. So you enter a chamber. It is open and very, it's not as stagnant as, even though the cave before you, the hallway that you were running through, was relatively open. There wasn't a lot of air movement. In this room, you feel some sort of kind of breeze or pressure change somewhere that is kind of keeping it somewhat fresh. You slam this stone door behind you. It kind of creaks on unoiled hinges and seals. You kind of can feel the cascade of these plant-like creatures kind of slamming against it, but you're able to shut it. in this chamber, you see basically the entire kind of right side of the chamber is sunken into the ground and broken away. There is water that seems to kind of pass through the center and down into where this room has fallen away to. But in here you see a very well crafted, like pictorial mural. It is definitely done in like an elvish style, very flowy with kind of uniform, natural looking, not uniform, unsymmetrical kind of natural looking motifs of leaves and things like that. But there is also like a large dais on one side and like a slab that kind of looks like a person laying down holding some sort of table on their belly.
I think once the doors have been like barricaded or shut against, you know, the horde of things that are kind of pressing against it from the outside, Alistair will finally kind of relax a second. Kind of his shield hanging by one side and that axe kind of still held aloft, kind of above his field of vision so that it kind of illuminates enough without actually blinding him in the darkness. And he kind of takes a look around at some of the things that you've just described, and he calls back, Shonovan, how do you know this place?
At this point, Shonovan is as we've closed the door. He's trying to attend to Aranthea, seeing what her wound is like and if there's anything to do. So he's a bit preoccupied when Alistair mentions like, how does he know this place? And I think he just kind of offhandedly says, I've lived here before.
Alistair comes over and kneels down beside Shonovan, realizing that Anthea looks hurt. Kind of this really being the first chance that he's had to really assess what's been going on. And he wants to try to take a look at her from the experience of a battle medic. You know, are they going to be able to help her, or is it going to be better to just focus on trying to get out of here?
Roll a medicine check. You can have advantage given your history.
Okay. Switch to the sheet. Medicine's a +6. Hell yeah. What is this one? 14.
Quick assessment. You definitely can tell that she's probably cracked the bone. It's not a full break, but she's definitely got she damaged her leg on the fall. As there's some bruising and swelling already. You're also aware, kind of just like rapid assessment, she is sick. Like, not recently sick, like the kind of signs of a lasting illness, insert magical illness here with, actually, aren't you afflicted by some sort of illness?
I am. Yeah, I have a what is that called? Very active health that keeps it at bay. I don't know if I ever named what it was.
Oh, I digress. You're able to identify, though it seems to affect elves differently in a less virulent way. She seems to have some of the same symptoms that you do. And as you notice, she kind of locks eyes with you in understanding of what you're looking at.
So he starts administering help as best he can, and kind of quietly he says, how long have you been touched by the vermillion?
I'm not really sure. Somewhere between 4 to 5 weeks.
Do I overhear that being right there?
I'm gonna have Jeremy, you do a stealth check versus Shonovan's perception check.
Okay. I'm gonna roll it at disadvantage because he wasn't really super trying to be
Sure.
quiet enough to hide it from Shonovan. Just more the other two in the room. Still pretty high roll though. Stealth. Oh, nice. I have disadvantage on stealth anyways. 13 total.
Yeah, I rolled a 1 on that check, so I got a total of 5.
I think then Shonovan you probably handed Aranthea over to Alistair briefly, and maybe someone was calling for your aid somewhere else in this room because a lot of the script is Elvish.
I'm also thinking too, I might be distracted by what I just said to Alistair.
Which is valid.
Because to my knowledge, I have not lived here, actually. So why would I have said that? Don't know.
So I'd like to do Cure Light Wounds on her. If it looks like the wounds that she has could be healed by that, you know.
Yeah, I would say so. It's definitely something like a doctor needs to look at later on.
Right, right. And I don't imagine it'll do anything about the disease, but cast that. So it's a D8 plus 4. So that is 7.
Alright.
I think that might be his last spell slot. No. His last first level spell slot.
I think
We're fine.
Oh, Guthrum.
Sorry.
Guthrum.
Sorry, Svedna, you can go if you want.
Sure. I think unless you had something, I do think once she sees that Aranthea is being tended to by Shonovan and Alistair, I think Svedna would actually take a look at the figure that you mentioned, like the stone figure that was kind of on top of that like slab or whatever, and just kind of take a look at it. Does the figure have a head?
It does.
Okay, yeah, so she kind of just nods to herself, and then she can actually read Elvish. So I think with her dark vision, after she sees that this is not the domain of this headless entity that
I've got a torch too, and I'd love to check it out with you. I actually also read Elvish.
Oh, sure,
we can
great. Yeah, we can do it together. Excellent. All right. Yeah, so she once she's sure this is not the weird headless thing, she will kind of sidle over to Guthrum and kind of take a look at the walls and the Elvish script on the walls.
You did good back there, kid. Reminds me of your dad.
Yeah. Thanks, Guthrum. I think she kind of gives you this look, and then she says, "Can I ask you something real quick? I know this is terrible timing, but what happened? I've seen visions of you, flashes of you. You do not take this the wrong way. This is not me trying to be sassy with you or anything, but like you seemed happier before. What was it? The werebear curse thing, or what? The visions that I saw of you with my father, you seemed happier.
I would call that kind of just life wearing you down, Svedna. You might get to it at some point. After a while, all of the little bits, after all the little bits of strife accumulate over and over, and you see the cycle of things and how you try to break out, you try to make a change. This war will be the last war. It's never It always comes back around.
Well, and I'm sure hiding what all of you decided to hide for whatever reasons, and again, we don't have to get into it, but I'm sure having to keep that secret was probably a burden, in addition to all the other burdens that you just mentioned, the burdens of life, an additional burden for you to carry. So I suppose that makes sense. And she'll look up to the elvish script on the wall. Go ahead.
Have you ever done something you wish you could take back, Svetna? Something that you think about every day?
I mean, we all make mistakes. I get that, but nothing, again, not to be rude, but nothing quite like what all of you did. But yes, there are mistakes that I've made that I do think about, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let's just focus on this, shall we?
Right. There's a tide of plant monsters outside. Hopefully they'll leave us alone now. She kind of just very pointedly looks at another area of Elvish script on the wall, just not looking at Guthrum.
So this mural-like motif is very like end is nigh. We have kind of rows of what appears to be elvish
As
soldiers.
I'm talking to you, Svenna, like, see, look, the end is nigh.
You have like rows of what appear to be elvish soldiers. You see kind of like regiments of dwarvish soldiers. There are humans against these kind of like writhing masses of darkness that kind of are part of the broken away portion. So you can't see a large portion of what that was. You see a individual at the front of like the elvish lines, and he wields a sword. And he is like plunging it into the chest of some sort of evil entity. They're horned. They kind of have just like a wickedness about the depiction. But you also, just on the edge, you see kind of like the foot soldiers for this evil entity. And they are bestial looking, but all of them, and Guthrum, I don't know if we ever detailed this, but what does the mark of Marduk look like?
I think the mark of Marduk is like, it looks like you've been clawed by a bear. So, 4 jagged scars.
So on all
are
of these kind of like foot soldiers that we see, there are the 4 dash lines across their chest.
And as I'm looking at them and holding the torch up, I'll just like inadvertently, rub mine. Is that
Go ahead.
Well, so that seems nuts. And I don't know what quite to do with it.
So there were were creatures like you and Broderick that were working for this thing, whatever this
Well,
is.
the mark of Marduk is just for like my clan, right? So are these presumably dwarves, or does that mean?
It seems as if there may be some mysteries about this mark that you are not privy to. You can try and investigate further.
Yeah, I definitely want to investigate further. And the person holding the sword attacking the creature mainly that's an elvish creature for sure. I mean, all this is in
Yes.
elvish. I think
You can kind of see it. There is all the humanoids look similar in design as just kind of like the the motif of the mural, but there's like a kind of like a swirl, if you will, on the elves. There's kind of like a a nesting doll style of squares on the dwarves. There are like lateral lines on the humans, just kind of like simple identifiers.
Just depictions, but a unified front also. That's interesting. I think I would like to investigate further and call Shonovan, maybe seeing that Alistair's trying to attend to Aranthea to like kind of pull Shonovan out of whatever it is.
So now you are also examining it. Is there anything that you were kind of trying to investigate further?
I still think to a certain extent, now that the immediate danger has passed, that she is still a little distracted just by everything that has happened between learning that Halasair has another one of these crystalline creatures, the revelations about her father, I think, and with the recent conversation with Guthrum, I think her mind is wandering a little bit. I do think maybe she would, more out of curiosity than really like intense focus, so maybe more of a perception check than investigation check. I think she would be looking for like any signs of like creatures that didn't have their heads, or like some, because Aranthea mentioned like a headless entity that was sort of like at the heart of this darkness underneath the Rotwood. And I think she'd just be looking for that while kind of mentally filing away. That's interesting that there are these individuals with the same mark that Guthrum and Broderick have that seem to be working for some sort of evil associated with what's going on.
Okay. Guthrum, roll an investigation check. And Svedna, roll a perception check.
All right. Big -2. Here we go. That's a 6. Big sexy 6.
16.
Svedna, your curiosities are kind of murdered by the fact that most of the evil side of this tableau has crumbled off into this fallen chamber. But as you're looking, you look down, and there is another chamber beneath this. It's about 15 feet down, but there seems to be another structure beneath this one, in a room that you can get into with a like ambient light. Guthrum, you got a 16. The figures that bear the mark of Marduk, the heights are kind of analogous to real world heights, like the dwarves. All their figures are a little bit shorter. And you kind of like hold your finger next to some of these, and none of the soldiers of Marduk, if you will, are the same height as the elvish figures, but they are the same height as the dwarvish figures.
Not to distract everyone, but there's another chamber down here, and there's something glowing in it. I don't know if we want to go take a look, or if we want to. What exactly were we trying to do here? Were we trying to find Halasair, or what were we? What was the plan here?
We fell in. I don't know that there was much of a plan about it.
Well, right, but we were trying to go somewhere, I thought. This was it.
I thought you were leading us to the crystal caves.
Well, no. I don't think I was.
Oh, no.
No, it was the sepulcher of pines, or sepulcher of trees, or something. Some sorts of like holy place that I guess Halasair was trying to go.
Sorry.
So is that where we are, or are we close to that? Aranthea?
Just for context, Aranthea probably would have said that you are kind of like in the bowels of the more less trodden pathways of the sepulcher of the Willow.
Gotcha.
If anything, you're trying to find a way out.
Got it.
So I think Alistair will turn to Shonovan and say, "Does the chamber below lead to a way out?"
Why would I know that?
You
I've
just
never
said,
been here before.
You just said half a minute ago that you used to live here.
Did you hit your head, maybe? I mean, I've done that before. It happens.
Donovan, which is it? Did you used to live
Alistair,
here, or have you never
I've
been here before?
Never been here before. But fine. I don't know why.
You led us to this
are
room.
you okay?
Me?
Aranthea, is she okay?
Oh.
Is she going to be okay?
I'll be fine, Sean.
And with
Oh,
that,
no.
he'll stalk over to wherever Svedna is in this chamber. Because he's clearly trying to make it appear he knows what the hell's going on, but he doesn't know what the hell's going on. And
Are you all right, Sean? You seem a little
fine.
Right. Okay.
And then he'll stand at the precipice of the chamber, and it looks like he is trying to deduce something. And then he'll just turn and say, yes, there's a way out.
Excellent. See, I knew when you had that look on your face, you were figuring it all out, putting the puzzle pieces together. Very exciting. I could fly down and take a little look, or I could fly down with someone, as long as they're not too heavy.
Does it look
Maybe
like we
Sean?
can climb down the rubble?
Yeah.
What is it you're implying, Svetna?
I mean, you're built like a keg of beer, Guthrum, and I do not have
thank you.
a lot of strength in my limbs. I have noodle arms. Not really, but
It's kind of a shaft, so like you could climb down, not so much like walk down.
I have a 50 foot of hempen rope.
Yeah, and I think already
We'll tie it off.
Shonovan is already tying off a rope around himself and finding a good place to anchor it, and he's already in the process of getting ready to go down.
Right. Guthrum, if you want, I'll take your torch, and I could just fly down with the torch and kind of show you all what is around you as you're climbing down.
Delightful.
Great.
With as much rope as it seems you have provided.
What do we do with Aranthea? Can she come, Alistair?
Does this door look like it's going to hold against the things outside of it?
It seems to have quieted down.
Okay.
Yeah, they kind of like rushed past. At least I think that's what happened.
We could leave
Climb
her
onto
here.
my back. We're not leaving her here.
Or we could
I'll be
strap her
fine.
to Shonovan's back.
Alistair took good care of me. I'll be just fine. This isn't the first time I've climbed down the rope, and it won't be the last.
Well, if someone falls, I can maybe catch them, or try to catch them.
With as much rope as you all have, and the fact that you have someone that can fly,
this shaft is 5,000 feet deep.
you move down into the shaft of the next room. You see, this room is not made from large stones. This room seems to be carved from one stone. There are no seams. There are no places where blocks fit together. It is just one solid stone room. And to get into it, you kind of have to go down the shaft, and there's a bit of rubble to be moved. And as you pass into this room, everything is illuminated with just ambient magical light. You don't know where the source is or what's powering it, but there's a soft white light or yellow light, just something very kind to the eyes, in this room that doesn't have any kind of descriptors, but it goes into a pathway into like further in, and kind of opens up into like a semicircle area before carrying on, where you see it kind of like forks.
I suggest we try to either map this out or mark where we've been, just in case we try to get lost. Although it does seem Sean knows where we're going. Should you lead, Sean?
don't think he even replies to you, but he heads out, and I think he's going down the right-hand fork.
That is the fork closest to the semicircle. And it, as you pass by it, this kind of just plain cut like granite stone, there is like a tablet of some kind. It almost looks translucent, like a yellow glass. You walk past it, and it's clear to see there's the same. It's similar, but it looks older than the mural you've seen above. All of these entities, there are large, giant-like entities. There are human-looking entities, elvish entities, dwarvish. Seems like there's like an orc-like entity, dragons. They're all showing reverence to this central figure, a robed, elderly figure with notably round ears. In one hand, he holds a tome, and in the other, he holds a bag.
Do I recognize this scene, this mural, from anything that I would have learned in my
As far as you know,
schoolings?
elves are the OG elders, and they were the first of the first, so to see something like this is kind of heretical.
I
Like,
think
elves will commonly be like, you know, these sniveling baby humans have been crawling in the mud and have yet to reach adolescence, while we have been, you know, elders
adults
for, you know.
Shonovan would be seeing this, would actually reach out to touch the figures.
It's cold. The kind of like pedestal that's holding it, still holding firm. It doesn't move or anything. It's kind of just set in this inlay, this kind of clear-ish yellow glass.
Are the figures like etched into the glass, or are they
Yes.
like, okay?
Does
Alistair-
anything change? Oh, sorry, go, Alistair.
I was just gonna say, Alistair kind of comes up and puts that axe that has the light on it kind of back behind this piece of glass, if he can, if there is a behind that he can reach. What does this mean? It looks religious in nature of some kind.
Shonovan's
Yeah,
just
do you
shaking his head.
know? Do you know? I mean, you were the one that told us about this place.
This doesn't make any sense.
Fiddling with it, it does come loose if you'd like to take it.
Does it seem like glass? Like,
Yep.
a
Or some
strange
sort of
thing
gemstone.
to have survived for so long down here.
Can Svedna's gonna kind of hold up her, I think it was her left hand? Yeah, left hand, that has a little swirl of like little crystalline growths. Does this glass seem like the same material as Vazakil, or does it seem different? Is it more crystal or more glass?
It seems very similar to Vazikil, though clearly inanimate.
Right. Hmm. So I think what she would do, she would show the others and maybe have the growths kind of sprout just a little bit more so they can clearly see the comparison. I imagine Vazikil again is like this deep, like crimson red color versus that kind of pale yellow coloring that you mentioned of this other crystal. That's a little strange.
I mean, that you would feel kind of like surges of curiosity, intrigue, maybe a slight confusion as Vazikil is trying to identify what this is as well. It's almost like Vazikil would get the kind of the vibe that this is maybe like discarded skin from a larger form of itself, like a remnant of something. It doesn't necessarily look like it's like a resource that was gathered and carved into.
Okay, so it doesn't have like the strong like reaction of like anger or like this was an enemy. This is just sort of like leavings, essentially.
Yeah, it's like finding a dead snake skin, or not a dead snake skin, like a discarded snake skin kind of thing, like a molt.
Yeah, and I think Svedna would explain that to the others. So this was sort of a leaving or a discarding of sorts from a larger crystalline creature similar to mine. That's odd. I mean, to be fair, I did not know there were other creatures like this one out and about, but I certainly didn't think that they would use, or someone would be using pieces left behind from these creatures as a building material. That is odd.
But Halaster also showed some form of this,
Right.
of your power.
Well, and his was different. It was like it was corroding his skin, but it seemed to be some kind, like an actual entity, not the leavings, I assume, but maybe like Vazikil, it has some kind of mind of its own. I don't know. Maybe he's not in control. Maybe he is not as in control of it as he claims.
Could both of your powers somehow be connected to this place?
I think at that, I think Sven will actually touch her hand to that piece that Alistair is holding, the hand that has kind of the Vazikil swirl, just to see if there's any kind of reaction beyond what it's already kind of shown her.
Wow. Okay. There's kind of a moment of clarity as you touch Vazikil to this construct. You are given kind of like a flash of psychic recording. There is like a transient message that you understand through the medium that is your companion. It's not words that you understand, it's experiences through another one of these symbiotes attached to somebody else. From what you can tell, it's in an age of antiquity. The Rotwood thriving and vibrant, and you are one of a messenger or like missionary quest. Behind you, one of these large singing trees, nothing like a tree you've ever seen before. It's surface like a black obsidian tower that forks at the top into hundreds of branches. These trees, how you got here, traversing the plains. You see all sorts of people, but there is kind of like a looming threat. You feel like the hair standing on the back of your neck. Visions of this headless one. And you know that he is hungry for the power that you have, so that he too might explore. And you're back.
Yeah, I think kind of while her eyes had sort of rolled into the back of her skull as this flash of vision happened, she would just be like relaying just like snatches of almost like a word salad of what she's seeing, like, you know, obsidian trees, branches stretching to the heavens. So many trees came here with the trees to this plane. A headless one wants to consume the crystals. And then she kind of snaps back into herself as the vision ends, and she pulls her hand back. Whoa.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm not bleeding. I mean, she kind of like starts touching her nose and her mouth. No, all right. Yes, that is interesting. So this headless one wants to devour these crystals somehow. To experience things as these crystals do. Seems like there are quite a few of them, actually.
You feel a draw to the room further down.
So is there like another hole in the floor, or is there like another passage leading off of this
It
room?
seems like, yeah, there's like a combination of a tunnel that is partially collapsed as well as an opening into a chamber above.
So I don't know how everyone is feeling about some back-breaking labor, but maybe we clear that tunnel and keep going, because something is sort of pulling me in that direction as opposed to going back up.
There really isn't too much rubble to move. It's more or less like one pathway that existed kind of alongside these smooth stone chambers has caved in because the chamber above it has kind of collapsed onto it.
Okay. Yeah. Then I think in that case, after saying that, Svedna will just go and start moving rocks, such as there are.
Yeah, I think Alistair probably looks at Svedna and understands not the specifics of what she was talking about, but just the baseline understanding of what it's like to be compelled by something that you don't entirely understand. And so he just moves to start working beside her and moving rubble.
This room will help, but kind of half-assed, and he's definitely eaten some rations on the side.
Once there's enough cleared out of the way, Alistair will, shield and glowing axe, if it's still going. I don't remember how long light lasts. But if he needs to, he can
I think it's
it.
a cantrip, so
yeah.
You can cast it. You
poke
your head up, and you find yourself in a strange circular room. In the center of the room, there is a life-size version of the mural 2 chambers back. There is a man on a table similar to the one outside, where there's a guy holding the slab above his belly. Atop him, there is the kind of mummified remains of some sort of elvish figure. His features twisted and demonic. You can see horns protruding from his desiccated skull that still kind of remains mummified here. There is a sword kind of plunged into his body. It kind of ripples with like a radiant, cindering light. It is cracked in various places, and kind of tied to the end of the hilt are strings that go to the circumference of the room with like talismans, with elvish incantations. Svedna and Sean, I need you both to roll wisdom saving throws.
Oh, doggy.
I rolled a nat 20.
And I rolled
22.
a nat 1.
Oh.
For a 1.
Sean, you feel the immense weight kind of ripple through you, as almost like the dropping of your stomach when the malice takes over. I think you said it may have happened more than once, or at least like the feelings of intense like dread and anxiety of it coming on.
Yeah, it would have happened since I've been exiled, and here it happened a couple of times until I could learn, till I knew what it was meaning, that feeling, and then could take
so I think you you're kind of hit with like the immediate waves of revulsion, and like the kind of like your whole body becomes hot. You feel like a sweat, like, or you could vomit, as you just like do everything in your power to hold it in, like even that kind of bile rising in the back of your throat, and almost like in tandem, you and Svedna go to take a step, and you hold yourself back, but Svedna, you are unable to, as the pull of the sword calls out to you as like the call of your mother telling you that it was dinner time. You reach out, and as you walk, you just kind of like rip through these strings, and as you do, all of the talismans kind of like burn and fizzle up. And you reach out and grab the sword and pull it free. This desiccated corpse kind of like rolling from the table.
Svedna, what are you doing? Stop! No!
You now have the magical item Flame Tongue.
Oh, great.
Which you can add to your character sheet, I believe.
Dankeschön.
And as you
real quick, sorry not to cut you off. Which version is it? Is it the short sword version? Because I think that's the only one I can use.
If that's a thing, yes.
Beautiful. Continue.
The kind of broken and chipped pieces, as you grab the sword, you feel Vazikil reach out and fill those voids. So this kind of like cindering, flaming sword is now riddled with that, vibrant crystal that is Vazikil's form. And as it fills those chips and cracks, the blade is able to light a flame once more, intermingling with like the colors of fire and light passing through the crystal.
I think my reaction to what's just happened is I almost maybe kind of collapsed to one knee, and I struggled to get the words out, but I'm Aranthea, get away. Go. All of you go. As I struggle to combat this feeling.
Across from you, the first thing you would notice, Sean, is the immense waves of relief as all this weight and revulsion and pain and guilt is almost like expunged from you instantaneously. The first moment of reprieve you've had in decades. Like the first rains of spring that kill off the snow melt and give rise to the blooms. You feel lighter. And across from you all, a door you hear audibly and kind of like slightly swings open. And kind of like hidden on the far side of this room, you see the desiccated and like mottled remains, the kind of paper mache skin of Gideon as he kind of like and kind of falls into this door. And I think that's where we're going to take our break.
This is fine. It's fine.
What are you guys doing?
I got an awesome flame tongue. It's all good, man.
Yeah, you rolled a 1.
Great,
You didn't
Robin.
see a magic item. Sean rolled a nat 20 and
Amazing.
Awesome.
All right. You ready to take a break?
Yeah. So take 10 minutes. We'll come back. Whatever's beyond this door is what it'll be, I guess.
Hell yeah.
All
No.
right.
did we make it as far as you expected us to, Baron?
I shaved a room off the dungeon.
Fair. I'm gonna go walk the
wait,
dog. I'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We're back with the second half of tonight's finale of A Willow Weeps. I'm going to pass things back over to our Dungeon Master, Baron.
We find ourselves moving through a door in pursuit of Gideon. We enter a room that has a few openings. It is another circular room. This time there is a large circular pool of water in the center. As there are doors kind of circumventing the outside of this chamber, there are also roots that kind of penetrated the ceiling. And whereas some kind of spider out on the walls, some reach the floor, cross the floor span into the larger pool itself. Lining some of these roots are veins of crystal, some red, some green, almost like a sap, if you will. Or a mycelial network even. And kind of like arranged around this room are large black stones, dolmen-like. Not the same granite that lines the outsides of these rooms. And this chamber is definitely similar to the elven stonework that you've seen in the first couple chambers versus the ones below. Affixed to these dolmens via like these bramble creatures and like a pseudo almost alien facehugger way, they kind of like attach to the face and have like pulled the victims and affixed them to these dolmens. You see the logger bodies, and they're all desiccated and withered as if their life has just been drained from it. Standing on one side of the pool, his back to you, presumably Gideon, his kind of missing arm, the dead tail. And on the far side, kind of like doing the last bit of adjusting of one of the loggers who's unconscious, you see Halaser, his body a grotesque amalgamation of crystalline creature and human flesh stitched together abhorrently. It's hard to tell where kind of he begins and the creature ends, as he's kind of like accurate himself, if that makes sense. He his left arm bulges and it like kind of like hulks to one side as it's kind of rippled with this creature, and he is hoisting this logger up with one arm, who affixes to the dolmen, and just as quickly his life force begins to enter, you can kind of see the tendrils of light seeping into the stone. What would you guys like to do?
Yeah, how far are we from the dolmen where this individual is being affixed right now?
You are about 120 feet.
Okay. So I think kind of holding this strange weapon, sort of recovering from whatever that was, by instinct, Svedna raises her other hand and shoots an Eldritch Blast towards. So have the kind of like the extensions of the bramble creature, have they latched onto the dolmen yet, or not yet?
They are starting to, and like as it completes, you feel is when the life force would be completely drained.
And we're seeing like the little strands of light coming out of the. Okay, yeah. So I guess she'll try to aim for the bramble strands if she can, to try and sever that connection. I will roll. Oh, that's actually pretty good. That's a 13 plus 5 for an 18.
This blast would definitely hit.
Okay, yeah, this kind of, I imagine it's just in this like weird, maybe silence of like creaking stone and energy being sapped from this individual. There's this loud concussive bang as this blast of crimson energy just lances across the room and severs through these brambles. I think unless someone else is saying or doing anything, Svedna launches herself towards Halaser.
As you hit this, and like the lumberjack kind of falls into the already kind of grasping hand of Hallister, who turns, his face kind of like horrifically disfigured. We see like kind of like some of his teeth are now crystal and the lips gone, as it's kind of just like open cheek on one side. I'm picturing like Two-Face, but mixed with like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen guy who drank all the super serum. The voice of Gideon, as you kind of launch into battle, he kind of, uh, you have no hope of stopping us. And we've already rolled initiative on the break, so we're going to go ahead and start. Sean, you're first.
Whereabouts is Gideon?
So this room is a giant circle. It's about 120 feet in diameter. The room is kind of set up like you're 30 feet of ledge, and then there's a 60-foot pool, and then another 30 foot of ledge. So the center interior is water, but there's a ring around it that's 30 feet wide.
How deep is that water?
You don't know.
Okay, deep enough.
It's hard to tell without getting up to it. It's kind of like the optical illusion of a pool, where since like it's all one uniform substance, it's hard to tell.
We just did the feeling that it's not something we could simply like run across ankle deep or something.
Maybe.
You want to lose them ankles.
Is Gideon on our side?
Yes. So I'm sorry, to answer your question, he would be like the other side of that 30-foot span that you're on. So he's only about 30 feet away from
Like at the edge of the pool.
Yep. His back kind of silhouette.
And then at the far end of the room, all the way across the pool, and at the back of the ledge, there is the dolmen.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to leave poor Gideon to Guthrum, because that's his kin. We'll just let him deal with that. So Shonovan's going to start going around, like on the ledge around the room towards the dolmen. I can go about 40 feet, but as I'm doing such, I am pulling out my longbow, and I'm going to shoot Hallister.
Okay.
And I have Dread Ambusher, so I get to make an additional weapon attack this turn. Okay, so first one is a 13 to hit.
13 will not hit.
Okay, second arrow. Oh, boy. Whatever just happened to me outside the door there, still rocking my boat, and that's a worse hit, like 10.
I think actually you may be getting hit with like floods of happy memories that you haven't been able to think of in so many moons.
Unnerving, completely unnerving.
Like perhaps a lot of your, animosity comes from your hatred and rage that you no longer feel.
But whatever it is, my aim is way off. That second arrow misses as well. As a bonus action, because I should have thought of this first and I didn't, I'm going to cast Hunter's Mark on dude, Hallister.
Okay.
That is my turn.
That brings us to Hallister. It is going to make a attack against the logger. For 25 to hit. For 13 piercing damage. He kind of like has this guy in his hand, and who's kind of like coming to now that the creature's been blasted, and like the sedative that it produces is no longer like holding his senses. And As he's kind of holding him, there's a secondary kind of like crystalline growth snaking its way along the hand, and it just pierces through the guy's chest and retracts, and the guy kind of like falls limp, and he casts him aside. The same crystal he's going to fire in 2 projectiles. One towards you, Svedna, for a 19.
She is going to, as the crystal whistles towards her, she lets out this horrified shout, seeing this individual die. She slams her free hand into the ground. Veins of crystal spread from her fingers, and this wall of crystal appears before her. She's going to cast Shield, which will raise her AC to 22 until the end of her next turn.
These crystalline spikes kind of like embedded in the shield you've created just seconds before. The second is going to be hurled at Alistair for a 19 again.
I'm pretty sure that's going to... Yeah, I have it. 16.
For 7 points of necrotic damage. And he is going to strafe and kind of try and keep Sean at somewhat of a distance, moving towards the other side of the pool from you. Which brings us to Alistair.
So I don't think he was fast enough to bring his shield up, kind of staring at the back of Gideon, in this projectile, this crystalline bolt kind of shoots across and strikes Alistair kind of right in the shoulder. He kind of stumbles backwards, looks down, realizes that there's other things going on, and that now it is crucial to be absolutely present. Brings his shield up, kind of shattering the rest of this like crystalline projectile that's sticking out of his shoulder, and trying his best to heft Hugh upwards. He's going to move up beside Gideon and attempt to strike at him with his blade. Let's see. What is my dust? Oh, God. Okay, before I roll this. Okay, instead of hefting Hugh Hefner, I think he's going to reach out with his hand instead of the axe, actually. And kind of in anger and rage, he's going to attempt to touch Gideon. 14?
Will hit.
Yes. He reaches out and grabs a hold of Gideon. And as he does so, he kind of admonishes him. He says, "What you're doing here is unnatural. This is not the way that things are done. This is not the flow of life and death. This is not what Daraba would have wanted." And he lays his hand upon this individual with second level spell slots being the only thing I have remaining. I'm going to juice and inflict wounds to second level. So that is... And... 22 points of... What is inflict wounds? Necrotic.
So, as you reach out to grab Gideon, he himself looks like, you or I. I mean, he looks hungry, emaciated, but he looks like he's, tangible. He's there. And as you reach out, the spell kind of crackling, his body just kind of gives way. Like any kind of flesh that was there, just an empty husk, like an old beehive. And as you kind of like crush it, the earwigs and millipedes and roly-polies begin to fall from the husk. And
again,
kind of echoes.
I think from Alistair's point of view, we see this a poor soldier from the field of battle that Alistair had treated once upon a time, that had like severe like some kind of caustic, like an acid spell that was used. So like he was literally just coming apart every time Alistair would try to touch him. You know, it would pull away another layer of skin. And that's kind of what is playing in his mind as it imparts this kind of disintegration upon Gideon.
And as he falls to the ground, his face kind of being the last thing to disintegrate at the touch, his mouth not even moving, just the words echoing. After what we've done, there will be no flow of life and death. The Headless One will rise.
Anek forbids it.
He was released the moment the seals were broken. And his face fades to ash. Is there anything else you'd like to do on your turn?
No.
That brings us to Svedna.
So I know you said Halliser moved. So like ballpark, how far away is he at this point? I know he was kind of keeping a distance. You're muted.
From you, I would say he's probably about 75 feet away.
Okay. All right. So Svedna is going to, she will again kind of launch into the air. She'll fly 30 feet towards him, and then again kind of shoot this again this kind of concussive crimson lance at this horrible crystalline thing, maybe aiming for that spur of crystal that is still dripping with that poor logger's blood. Oh, that's pretty good. That is a 17 plus 5 for a 22 to hit.
That will hit.
And you know what? I was giving Karen shit about Hunter's Mark. I forgot to hex him, but that's okay. We will just deal the regular force damage on this.
You can hex him. It's fine.
Well,
he can be hexed.
The thing is it also will eat up my last spell slot, so I don't think we're gonna do that.
Then no.
Okay, that is 8 points of force damage.
The the red lance that you fire at him takes. I mean, he's much larger now than a regular human should be, and it's not hard to hit him as your bolts land true.
That's it. Well, yeah, I think that'll be it.
That brings us to Aranthea, who is going to she's going to begin removing one of the loggers from the dolmens. This is sacrilege! What have you done? You should never have put the human remains on the stones! As she's kind of like using her druidcraft to like remove these blights from the stones. Guthrum.
So how far is Hallister from me if I'm at the opening?
For you, probably about 80 feet, as you're
80 feet.
Slightly behind Svedna, who had charged in the beginning.
Yeah. And the dolmen's all the way 120 feet away from
Well,
me.
there's multiple dolmens in
There's
this room.
multiple. Okay.
Yeah, each had like one of these loggers. You were kind of witnessing the last of the ones that had been dragged down here.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm going to go to the nearest one and seeing what Aranthea is doing. I'm going to do what she's doing and try to like take some of these remains down. So are they like held up there with like rope, or how are they?
It's the bramble like vine blights
Yeah.
themselves. They kind of like face huggered themselves to the things and then have like sucked them up onto the dolmens.
Yeah, I'm gonna chop them down if I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me an attack roll.
22.
You easily are able to hack into the clear, clearly bramble creature, and it kind of falls and starts to like wither, and like as it kind of detaches from this logger's face, you hear like a slight
They're alive! The loggers are alive! Get the branches off of them!
Give me an investigation check.
14. Fuck yeah, dude. Thank you, beyond.
As you take this logger from the dolmen, you notice that one of these veins of like green crystal on one of the roots that passes by the dolmen and kind of like braces the bottom, was starting to fade. And as you remove this entity, it kind of begins to pulsate more regularly and return to its color. Take that as you will.
I'll just yell out, remove the loggers!
Actually, I will also say, as you notice this and you like look at the logger, kind of pull the creature from his face, the bite or what have you has left like some sort of triangular symbol almost carved into the guy's face. His eyes are mangled. It looks like witchcraft of some kind.
Okay. I'm good at chopping, not so good at investigating. I think I did a great job.
That brings us back to the top with Sean.
I will continue to go around the ring. I realize like Hallister was running away from me. I'm going to continue that way, so it's going to push him towards the rest of them. If he keeps running away from me, also keeps him within range, and I'm going to release another arrow directed upon him. That is a dirty 20.
That'll hit.
Okay, so nice. So 11 plus Hunter's Mark, 11 plus 3, 14 points of damage.
Is this magical by any means?
No, I don't believe so.
Your arrow hits, but it doesn't seem as if it penetrates as fully into his skin.
I mean, I don't know if Hunter's Mark is magical. That would have been 3 points of damage, but the arrow itself is not magical.
I'll give you it. Is there anything else you'd like to do?
Nope, that is everything.
You do see that he looks almost a little deflated.
Like air's being let out of him, so he's less bulky.
Kind of.
Or
He seems a little less like swollen. Slightly.
okay, cool.
If there's nothing else, that brings us to his turn. He kind of sees that he's going to be pincered here. He is going to, I said he was about 75 feet away from Svedna. Did you try to close the distance between the two of you, Svedna?
Yeah, I think she would have moved her 30 feet of flying, shot off her blast, so he's probably closer to like 45, 50 feet from her.
So he'll move that 20 feet towards you to kind of like split the distance. And he's going to launch 2 bolts at you. Oh, I clicked on the right thing. A 10 to hit.
That's a miss.
And a 9 to hit. God damn
Those
it.
will both miss. Yeah.
My boss monster's cursed.
Imagine she's just like flapping her wings furiously, avoiding these crystalline bolts.
He's probably even like, ugh, ugh, his body kind of like straining under the crystal. And you can see like where it meets, it's almost like the flesh is kind of peeling back, forcing like a weird back and forth of healing crystal and healing crystal. And it definitely looks like his skin is like rotting / rusting away. That brings us to Alistair.
So, having just kind of struck down Gideon, Alistair kind of looks up and sees where Alistair is kind of like making his way around the ring, or kind of around the edge of this circular pool, and he starts heading kind of the opposite, like clockwise or counterclockwise to him to meet him. And as he starts to get closer, he reaches out with his non-shield holding hand. And we see once again as he calls upon a memory that he had of these people in the streets in the wake of the war that was happening, who were starving, emaciated, just wasting away, no meat on their bones to speak of, as he is going to cast Ray of Enfeeblement on Alistair. Yeah, a 25 to hit.
So he has resistance against magic effects and spells.
Okay.
So
is
it
ranged touch? Ranged spell attack, rather?
I don't know.
I think that would be on like saving throws against magical effects.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it would affect like a to hit roll, which it sounds like that's what Jeremy was doing.
What?
Rolling to hit.
Do it. Hit me.
All right. So on a hit, the target deals only half damage with weapon attacks that use strength until the spell ends. He can make con saves at the end of his turn to try to throw the spell off. So maybe that's where his advantage would come in play.
Okay. Yeah, I think so.
So he reaches out, and this invisible or barely visible like tendril kind of tethers in between his hand outstretched towards Alistair and Alistair himself. And I imagine like the crystalline parts of his body don't diminish at all, but like the part that's still flesh, we almost watch like just that portion lose some of its bulk, some of its tone, get a little thinner, which maybe even causes more havoc because of the non-decreased weight of this crystal, on his body. But we also see in the memory of Alistair, we see the other half of what's happening when he's casting these spells, which we have not really seen yet. We see his face kind of in concentration as he's kind of trying to recall the vivid details of this memory, as it's imparting this effect, this damage on this monster. We see the other side of the memory where he's seeing these emaciated people and he's nursing them back to health. He's making sure that they put muscle mass back on. And so what Alistair is doing is he is making good on a life that he stole from Anek, and he is now restoring balance by doing the exact opposite to another living creature.
I actually think that as the flesh side withers, we see it kind of like at one point it was like on his neck, and now it's overtaking the head, leaving like slightly eye and maybe some ear, and like his human vocal cords being overtaken into like this more chitinous like screech of like things rubbing together as he kind of roars with the pain. Is there anything else you'd like to do?
Just move 30 feet closer towards him.
Okay. That brings us to Svedna.
Yeah, I think she, after seeing Alistair cast this spell and seeing kind of this weakness set into this horrible crystal human amalgamation, I think she flies like an arrow loosed from a quiver straight towards Alistair. This strange, like crystal enwreathed sword in her hand. She's going to try to close the gap and then strike him with this blade if she can. That is a 17 to hit, 11 plus 6.
17 will hit.
Okay. So that is, I'm assuming this is magical because it's the Hex and Pact weapon. So that is going to be 6 points of magical slashing damage plus, and I imagine maybe as it carves through the flesh, there's this almost like feedback explosion of crimson flames and oily black smoke. That is going to be an additional 5 points of fire damage as well.
That was a total of 10 points?
2 plus 4 was 6, plus an additional 5, so that's 11 total points. And I think as she says this, she kind of lowers her voice so this horrible thing can hear, and she says, I'm going to let everyone know who you are and what you did. Don't think that you are escaping justice as long as I am here. For my father and for all the people that you and she kind of pauses for a moment and then just kind of refocuses on the fight, not quite ready to confront whatever it is, is going to happen with these other people in this group. But yeah, she's completely squared off with this individual, wings kind of flaring out to keep him kind of in her sights, and that will be it.
It's almost disappointing as you're like yelling at Halaser and seeing just the vacantness in the eye that remains, and he kind of just like not even saying words anymore. That brings us to Aranthea. She manages to get one of these loggers off, and she is going to cast a Cure Wounds on him to stabilize. Actually, it probably less Cure Wounds and more of like Spare the Dying. Stop that. And that brings us to Guthrum.
Yeah, so is Aranthea going in the direction closer to
No, she would have went the other way.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going the direction closer to Halaser then, and I will keep going and trying to get these loggers down from the dolmens.
If you're going to attack, I would say within 30 feet, you'll be able to get another one. So
My speed is 25 feet.
It's within 30 feet.
Cool. I got a reach of 5 with my great axe, if that helps.
Perfect.
Okay, so just attack with it again. Okay, 14.
14. You're looking for a 12 for these.
Great.
So as you hack into another one, it dislodges from the dolmen. As it disembarks from the logger's face, you don't hear gas air from this guy.
Okay.
You could try with like a medicine check to see if you could stabilize him, but outright he doesn't look as well as the last guy did. He's a little older.
I'm not so worried about his life, but I want to be able to see if this dolmen looked a little different to let me know, like, oh, the entire life force has been extracted or something, or if so I can focus on trying to get to the dolmens that
You
haven't.
see that this route is dark. There is no light glowing anymore.
Okay. So I'll just say focus on the ones with the light, the dolmens with the light. Although no one's fucking listening to me anyway. So
There's a lot of rage going on in this room right now.
except from the barbarian.
He's very chill.
No, he's tuned into what Aranthe is doing. He is like afraid of her, so he's and thinks she knows what to do in this kind of weird fucked up situation.
That brings us to Sean.
So Halaser's now got both Svedna and Alistair on him, right?
Yes, ish.
Um, I don't feel like shooting into them because that might be bad. Seeing what Aranthea and Guthrum are doing, are there any dolmens around me that have these things
Yes,
on them?
100%.
Okay, drop my bow, pull out my short swords, and go to the nearest dolmen and kill a vine blight thing. That's what I'm going to do.
Roll an attack. And you have a offhand weapon?
I do. Oh my
In theory,
God.
you could attack 2.
Yeah. The first one, that's a nat 1, so so we'll just attack that same one again.
Sure.
Okay, there we go. That is a 21 to hit.
You're able to cut free this logger, and likewise, you hear the as he gasps air.
If Aranthea is within shouting distance, I'll just let her know that this one's still alive as I continue to the next dolmen.
All right. That brings us to Halaser. He is going to square up with you, Svedna, as you've kind of slashed at him. He is going to have one of these like crystal like lances protrude from his body. This one kind of like coming, like you see his kind of skin like twist into a crystal and shoot out on a lance as you're kind of like doing battle with him. Does a 14 hit? You are able to kind of like, actually, you tell me, how do you block this?
So it's like you said it was like a lance of crystal, almost like
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I think what she does is she almost like kind of steps to the side, and in a move that honestly the others, if they were paying attention, which they have their own things going on, they would probably recognize as something that her father used to do, because he was also a winged tiefling. She steps to the side, just kind of like knocks the crystal like javelin almost, just slightly off kilter by just hitting it with her wing, and it kind of jerks off center, completely missing her and maybe clattering against the stone. Almost like an instinct of kind of repeating what her father told her before she squares up again.
Following up with this, he comes up with a claw strike, like breaking through this lance that he just made of his own body, with a 21 to hit.
And kind of as that claw is coming, it seems like it's about to hit her, and then she kind of holds out that left hand, in a circular, almost like a buckler of red crystal forms around her hand. She's going to use her last spell slot to bump her AC back up to 22. So that will miss.
And he kind of like swirls around. Alistair, you were close enough. He's going to swing at you with one of these claw attacks for an 18.
That will absolutely hit. If it is based on strength, then he deals half damage.
All right.
Currently.
So you would take 8 reduced to 4. And then he gets to make a con save. And he rolled a natural 1. So he's still weak boy. That
I
brings us
rolled,
back to
unfortunately.
Alistair.
I rolled a con save for the concentration, and I only got a 7. So that means even though he passed the save, it still fails.
You see some of the flesh begin to like regenerate and fight back, kind of like pushing back towards his mouth, and you hear him kind of like returning from this crystalline clattering to a more human-esque noise. But it is your turn, Alistair.
Okay, so he's definitely close enough to be enclosed with melee. Okay, so he now kind of shoots his empty hand down to the ring at his belt where this axe has been kind of slung, and kind of pulls, the head of it up far enough to grab those twisted vines that kind of form the haft, to pull it the rest of the way out, and he kind of works his hand down the weight of the axe until the head's kind of, at the far end of his hand now. And then he's going to step forward and kind of take an underswing with this axe to try to cut at the flesh leg of Alistair. Probably not. Well, no, that's not what I thought I first saw on the die. +2, so a 21.
That will hit.
Okay. So one-handed. This is a D. Is he's not plant related at all?
He
right?
is not. No.
Okay. So then. Okay. +1 +2 total. Okay, 6 points of slashing damage.
As you cleave into the flesh leg, for a moment before you withdraw the blade, you even see the flesh trying to like knit itself closed around the wound as rapidly as it can. Let me just say, it doesn't seem like he's regenerating. It just means like his body's holding itself together long enough to maintain the fight. If nothing else, it would be Svedna's turn.
Okay. Does he look rough? Like, I know that's kind of a silly question considering what he looks like, but does he look even more rough considering?
It looks like you've been doing damage to him for sure.
Okay, so I think what Svedna is going to do first is, as a bonus action, she takes this this kind of buckler that she formed of crystal sort of sprouting from her left hand. She's going to smash it against Halaser, and it kind of breaks and fractures into all of these individual blood red crystalline shards. She's going to basically cast her Hexblade's curse against Halaser, and then she's going to attack again with this crystalline flame tongue scimitar. So let me roll for that. Ooh, that's real bad. That is only an 11 to hit.
11 will not hit.
Okay. Yeah, so I imagine she swings, and maybe it's just the shock still of seeing this thing that is so, in a way, so similar to her, but also is sort of like the extreme version of her kind of connection to Vazikil. In this moment, maybe she realizes that, remembers what Halaser said before about who's in control in this relationship, and it sort of gives her like a moment's pause, and that causes her strike to miss, unfortunately.
I actually think that, like, as not the smoke clears, but as like the scene unfurls, Alistair kind of coming low, hacking into his leg, and you're probably above, swinging down, and there's like that moment where you see that, like he's holding like the shaft of your axe, preventing it from cleaving through his calf, and he's like holding Svedna's wrist to prevent like a strike to his face, kind of in this stalemate. If nothing else, that brings us to Aranthea. She's going to continue to, actually, she's going to move over to the one that Sean dislodged, and she's going to cast Spare the Dying as well, which brings us to Guthrum.
How many dolmens are left that are lit?
I would say 6.
6. Oh, fuck. Yeah, man.
I mean, you guys have gotten down, I think, like 4 or 5,
Yeah.
and there's probably about like 5 or 6 that are like done,
Oh,
like soul absorbed, done.
already done, huh? So we've prevented as much as we from happening as we could, or do I
Yeah,
get?
I would say so.
Okay, okay. Well, and I'm probably pretty close to the action at this point, maybe 20 feet away or
Yeah,
so.
you're right there. You're definitely within range.
Yeah, well, it seems like a few of his limbs are occupied, so I'll go ahead and rage and uh going to recklessly attack. Let's see here. Where is my reckless attack? Sweet. Okay. With my great axe.
21 to hit.
Yeah.
You charge in, wailing in rage. Your axe kind of come like he noticed, like chest clearly open as he holds 2 weapons at bay, and you come in and just right in the chest.
Yeah.
Is that a magic axe?
It is not a magic axe.
And that was how much damage?
That was 13 damage.
All right, reduce that to 6. Actually, we'll reduce that to 7. Your axe hits him in the chest, but there's like a repulsion of like latent arcana emitted from the crystal.
I'm like frothing at the mouth and just like trying to slash into it. Yeah.
If there is nothing else, Guthrum.
Yeah.
That brings us to Sean.
Sean is going to continue to the next dolmen and kill the blight on that thing too.
Roll an attack.
15.
You 100% cut this thing off, and you hear it's weaker. It's like this guy's younger. He one of the fresh guys from the crew, but his kind of duration on the dolmen has sapped him. You can actually see that he's like noticeably wrinkled and withered. Like
Ooh.
he looks physically older, but there's like a weird dynamic of like youthful frame with just withered appearance.
Right.
That same kind of etching into his face, eyes mangled.
I kind of drop him, letting Aranthea take care of it as I go towards the next one, and with my offhand try to kill that one too.
Sure.
Oh, 19.
Once again, you're able to remove the next of the loggers that had been kidnapped and brought down here. As you're doing this, and the crystalline like growths on the roots are like re-energizing, there is a like ambient glow to the pool. It's dim, but it's noticeable now that you've salvaged some of these roots.
Okay. I'm going to continue around to the next dolmen. That's my turn. I don't have the insight that Guthrum had, and I'm just going to continue to remove any bodies that are on these dolmens as I go.
I will say by this time you're probably within range of your next movement to get into melee with them.
Sweet.
As you've been working your way around. That brings us to Halaser. As he is flanked by the group of you, he says, his head now emerged. Well, it seems once more you will have to make a choice, Alistair. And he, from like a untarried side of his body, he's going to have two barbs emerge, and he's going to fire both at Aranthea. First one is an 8 to hit, but the second is a 23 to hit. The barbs fling across and kind of almost not foreshadowed. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Juxtaposed, maybe, with the memories you have of Daraba when she was taken by the explosion. It's kind of the same like impact recoil as the force of these spines hitting Aranthea like throws her back into the ground, blood kind of like emerging from her mouth in the same way that Daraba kind of experienced the force of the explosion. She falls to the ground.
I think even though it's not Shonovan's turn, he sees this barb go flinging past him towards the woman behind him, and I think he turns and watches it as it kind of impales her, and he screams her name, full of anguish as she falls.
And then he's going to make a tail attack against you, Svedna. A spine attack, rather. For a total of 21 to hit.
That will hit.
The kind of attention drawn away from the main fray, kind of like right here in front of you, as Aranthea is launched from the side of the pool. A spine withers up or writhes up his arm that he's kind of holding your sword, and it lashes out and pierces you for a total of 12 points of damage.
Yeah, I think Svedna tries to stifle a scream and barely manages to do it as blood spews out of her mouth. She is looking badly hurt by that.
For the sake of the narrative, I don't think the spine immediately retracts back out of you. I think it's kind of like maybe you're even holding it with your offhand.
With her offhand, kind of like trying to keep herself from bleeding out. I think that's absolutely what's happening. Just again, it's instinct. Just like shit, I can't let this get ripped out. It's gonna tear something important.
But that brings us to the end of Halaster's turn. Alistair, what do you do?
Okay. So I am out of direct healing magic entirely. I'm out of spell slots.
So I will bring up, there is a homebrew rule we discussed in the session 0 where you can utilize points of exhaustion for spell slots. So in theory, you could get, 1 point of exhaustion multiple times casting a level 1, or you could do a level 3 and take 3 points of exhaustion.
Okay. Let me look at what we've got for exhaustion here. Oh, the first one's disadvantage on skill checks or something, ability checks. Yeah. Speed is halved at level 2. Ooh, that's rough. I think Alistair turns in the direction of this spine that strikes Anthea first. And his first instinct is to run to her. Again, the similarities between her apparent suffering and what Daraba went through being like clear as day to him. And so his instinct is to even like take a full step to come towards her aid. But I think immediately, like beside him, Svedna cries out in pain as this grievous wound just kind of happens to her. and he turns around and realizes that if he doesn't do something, that this young woman is probably going to die. And Thea, or Arinthia rather, he thinks she's probably already on the path towards death anyways, with the disease that she's been struggling with for some time, without having protection against it. So he is going to make a call that I think he's probably had to make several times before on the battlefield, assessing trauma and trying to figure out where it's best to spend his time. And so without a second hesitation, he turns towards Svedna and is going to walk up to her and do Cure Light Wounds, taking a level of exhaustion for myself so that I can have a level 1 spell slot.
Hang on. So question for you, Baron, as the DM. So I feel like, well, okay, I guess first question is, would Svedna be able to see that Arinthia is down on the ground? Like, she's not standing up, she's not messing with bramble creatures anymore, she's on the ground. Like, would you say in the heat of all this fracas, would she be aware of that? If not, totally fine. I'm just curious, in your opinion. But you're muted, Baron. I can read your lips. Of course I'm fucking muted.
I don't want to say that for you. I would say, roll a d4, evens you are, odds you aren't.
So I rolled a 1, so she is not aware. Okay, then yes. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay. So that is going to be +4, I think. Yes, okay, so 11 points of healing back to you. So he reaches out. This time we see a flash of another cleric, another priest, who is in the middle of trying to help someone else. And he gets struck with an arrow through the neck and collapses onto the person he was literally just working on healing. And Alistair has to again make a snap decision between a soldier who is in a lot of pain, maybe missing a severed leg or something, lying just a few feet away, or spending the time healing this person who has the power to heal others. And then we snap back to the present, knowing the decision that he made.
If Alistair is done, that brings us to Svedna.
Yeah, I think as she feels this hand on her side and feels kind of the flesh around this horrible barb that's impaling her sort of knit together, Svedna looks over to you, Alistair, and I think you see sort of a similar expression to when you told her back in the grove that your father, that Selleck was a good man. You see kind of this look in her eye, and she nods to you, and then with all of her focus in this split second, she's going to try and maybe stab Hallister through the face with this blade.
I'm going to say with all your companions about you, you would have
okay.
advantage.
I rolled a dirty 20, which is, well, okay, actually, hang on. I don't think... okay, so it's a natural roll. Okay, it's fine. Dirty 20. Actually, no, I'll roll again just to see. No, okay, so dirty 20. All right. So, well, that's max damage on just the scimitar damage. So that's 10 points of magical slashing. Wow, that was almost max damage on the fire too. So 10 plus 9, so total 19 points of damage as she kind of sends this scimitar lancing towards this horrible crystal monster's head.
There's a light that kind of emerges, kind of like Gandalf riding down the hill on the third day light, where it's like, as the blade enters into Hallister's face, it kind of embeds there and it's stopped. You're met with like an insane amount of force in the recoil, so much so that it breaks like your crystalline connection to the sword, but you see like the just rapid growth coming from the wound and then kind of enveloping him and turning him into like this clump of inert crystal, the blade kind of stuck from his head. Is there any final touches you'd like to add on the killing blow?
So I'm going to steal something that Jeremy actually said in one of our previous sessions. So I think kind of in this final moment, as the blade sort of pierces Hallister's kind of skull, there's this moment where a little like fragment of Vazikil touches one of these weird kind of rust-colored crystalline growths, sort of engulfing this man. And there is this moment of sort of connection. And in this moment, I think Svedna sees through her father's eyes, through Vazikil's eyes, her father in his sickbed as he lay dying. And it's night, it's dark, maybe there's a flickering candle, the shape of her mother lying asleep next to her father. And there is this moment where there's a figure outside of the window, kind of a darkness that falls over this closed window, and the window opens, and this figure garbed in like maybe black leather armor kind of slips in, maybe like a half elf or some other kind of lithe individual, and they creep up swiftly to the kind of the reclining form of Selik Nazif, and they place a hand over his mouth, and they kind of lean in and just whisper, Halaser says hello. And then they just slide this poison dagger, or maybe not a poison dagger, maybe like just a couple of drops of poison into one of his pointed ears. And then they cork it and they just leap out of the window. And he will be found in the morning, seemingly having just passed in his sleep. But it was, in fact, Halaser that put out this hit on this loose end from the potion smuggling operation that he could get to a little more easily than like Shonovan, for example. But yeah, then she just rips the blade out in this spray of crystal and blood and kind of sags to the ground.
The remnants of Hallister kind of frozen in a crystalline time. About you, as you are able to rapidly clear up the remaining dolmens. We're out of initiative.
Just Shonovan has ignored the rest of the dolmens at this point. He's run to Aranthea's side and is
absolutely
trying to keep her alive.
You arrive at her side and you are unsure if she will live or if she will die.
I am holding her wound closed with my hand, so I'm sure I'm getting blood like everywhere on my hands, but I'm doing that first aid, like holding her life essence inside her body as best as I can.
And I think that's actually where we leave this scene. It's not a happy ending. It's Shonovan begging Aranthea, please don't go. Stay with me. I will hold it as long as I can. Please don't go. And it's kind of like the slow but rapid movements of everyone trying to frantically come together at the end of this. And in my mind, the scene would fade to black and we would see some credits roll for the kind of like post-credit scene. We see a patrol, a group of long patrol, seemingly slaughtered. Their horses in a pile, kind of bleeding out, the blood saturating the ground around them. We see pierced bodies of those who fought. We see now there are some that live kind of held on knees in chains. Their captors, red of face with blue noses, kind of almond-shaped eyes and pointed ears. Their garb, uniform, kind of with rank. It seems as if a Hob military regiment has taken them captive. And as we see like this row of soldiers of the Long Patrol whether about to be executed or hauled away to be slaves. This shadow kind of coalesces on the ground. We see kind of like on the pack beside him, it's good splayed on the ground, name tag, Finn. The shadow coalesces in an inky pool. The Hob commander kind of like getting the attention of one of the shamans. Oh yeah, hey, who comes over and kind of gets everyone back as the Finn kind of panics slowly as the shadow goes up his body and into his eyes, where it begins to pool. He kind of like eyes rolling in the back of his head as the substance enters his body. The process completing, his eyes lull back, the kind of like remnants of that black shadow escaping the whites. He looks at the commander of the Hob regiment, who kind of like shakily kneels and undoes the manacles that hold this soldier, who stands. He cracks his neck in a like absurdly gross, like too far, it would seem, and in perfect goblin, in like a very what's the word, like corrupted tone, we hear Finn respond, and the Hobbs pull a banner, and it is of a black tabard and white stitching of a man with no head. And thus the Willow weeps. A conclusion to a song of the Ards. We managed to come in just under 10 minutes of what I wanted, so that's perfect.
Amazing.
I know I didn't really give you guys character send-offs, but to be honest, really wasn't supposed to be the tone of this ending. Thank you all so very much for humoring me in this game idea that I had. You guys fucking nailed it, and I could not be more thrilled with how this has all come together. So definitely give yourselves a round of applause, because I know I am for y'all. I've had fun. I've been the DM this time. Jeremy, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure getting the opportunity to work with you to make this. Likewise to my players. Always fantastic to have you guys at my virtual table. I'm going to send it over to y'all for some outros, and we can get out of here so people can go to bed and not worry about fictional deaths. So we'll start with Jason.
Yeah, wow. That was a hell of a finale. Thank you, Baron, very much. This was great. Again, thank you, Jeremy, for hosting, and my fellow players. It's strange how, whether it's the streaming or just the group of the players, like it can totally change like just the tone and feel of a game. And this has been an exceptional trilogy. I've really enjoyed it. I miss this. You know what I mean? I miss sort of this aspect of things. But anyway, yeah, I've been Jason Osorio playing Svedna, and man, just such a great finale. So I will pass it on to Karen.
Oh, this words are hard right now. That was really good. That was I can't even call it a good ending. That was a terrible ending. We let this ancient evil out. So I'm expecting sometime in the future that there will be a sequel to A Willow Weeps.
This was the prequel.
Oh, yay! Oh, this was really good. This was really fun. Bittersweet endings are very poignant, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It was what a way to finish this trilogy. I thank you so much for running this, so much for having us here. Thank you to everybody else who's playing. I cannot wait to see what Baron's Bind has in store for the future in this world. And I'll pass it on to Philip.
Thanks, Baron, for running this game. Thanks, Jason, Jeremy, Karen. Always a pleasure playing with you. And yeah, I mean, Guthrum could have called this from the beginning.
Yeah, it's awesome because I don't ever get to play on the channel here because I'm normally the one that's behind the DM chair. So it was really awesome for you to offer to do this, Baron, and to arrange all of this. So I'm super super happy that I got this opportunity, especially in a game with players who, again, you know, like we were talking about before, who understand the assignment, who know that we've got 3 sessions and it's time to just like to get right to it, to not dance around it too much. And yeah, it's good because there's so much that you have to do in these scenes to try to make it feel like these characters know each other, that there's a history there, that the world feels lived in and real. So to be able to trust the other players and the DM as much as I trust all of you, that's a really great thing to be able to find in a group. So I can trust that you're going to help elevate, you know, what I'm kind of going for and in the same direction. And it's a pleasure to do that as a player. So thank you very, very much for being those kinds of players. Thank you, Baron, for being that kind of a dungeon master. I would absolutely, I mean, all of you know I love you, but I would love to play at the table with any of you at any point. So yeah, this was great.
Ironically enough, as much as I tried to like make this something that was like for the media of streaming, like people hopefully will enjoy it. Maybe, I don't know, I don't really care. There are parts of this that I was just like, I did it purely for the people playing, like name drops for NPCs that didn't really have much to do with anything unless you look at the backstory that we have written. Like I name dropped Clara twice in the course of 12 hours. It's just funny. It's interesting, but enjoyable. I had a great time. Thank you all. I don't have anything else, so Jeremy, if you'd like to take us out.
Certainly will. Again, thank you, Baron. Thank you, everybody who may have tuned in to watch this Erasmus Expeditions Presents. This has been a ton of fun. I hope that you stick around and watch some of the other stuff that's available here on the channel. If you like this kind of content, do all the stuff that YouTube likes to see, you know, hit the like button, you know, subscribe. You can check out the coffee link. You can check out startplaying.com where you can hire me to run a game for you if you'd like. Yeah, do all those things. And remember that kindness is a free action. It doesn't cost you a single thing to be kind to another person. And especially in the state of the world right now, kindness is at a premium. So if you can make a difference in somebody else's day, week, month, year, just by being nice, and it costs you absolutely nothing to do so, then please do so. It makes the world a better place. Yeah, thank you all so very, very much. I think we're going to go ahead and call it here. So until next time, may your dice roll high and your snacks always be within reach.